Rain clawed at the marble stones like it was trying to wash sin from the earth. The Roman marketplace trembled beneath the weight of thunder, alive with cruelty. Torches flickered against soaked pillars, the scent of iron and wet flesh heavy in the air. Chains rattled as men barked prices for broken souls. Each clang was a heartbeat of despair, echoing through the night. And in the center of it all stood Aria. She wasn't supposed to be here. Not like this. Not bound in rusted shackles, her once silver hair darkened by rain and dirt. Once, she'd walked through temples as the heir of a noble shifter line, a woman born of power and prophecy. Now, she was a prize on display. The she-wolf of ruin, they called her, as though her very existence was a disease that needed cleansing. Lightning ripped through the sky, lighting her face for one raw second, eyes glowing faintly silver, a mark of what she truly was. The guards whispered it like gossip and fear mixed together. That mark, it isn't human. It's cursed. A cold wind slashed through the crowd. Nobles huddled beneath canopies, wrapped in silk and arrogance, their laughter slicing sharper than the storm. The auctioneer's voice boomed above the chaos, slick with greed. Behold, the beast of Blood Moon, once royalty, now property. Aria kept her head bowed, rain dripping from her lashes, hiding the fury burning behind them. She could feel the pulse of her power under her skin, the silver flame begging to be released. But if she let it rise, if she let it take control again, she'd burn them all, and she'd already seen enough fire to last a lifetime. Her heart pounded like a drum in her throat. She could smell the fear and lust rolling from the crowd, the scent of wolves and humans alike who came not to buy, but to break. Still, she refused to cry. She'd learned long ago that tears were wasted on monsters. The man next to her collapsed, dragged away like a rag doll, his wrists bleeding where the shackles dug deep. The crowd barely noticed. The auctioneer raised a hand toward Aria. "This one is different," he hissed, voice carrying over the storm. "She carries the mark of the old gods, a danger to all packs, a danger to Rome itself." A murmur rippled through the spectators, curiosity laced with horror. Aria lifted her gaze, slow and defiant, and for a breath the world went still. Her eyes met theirs, silver against torchlight. Something primal stirred in them, fear cloaked as fascination. They stepped back instinctively, even the boldest among them, because deep down, everyone recognized power when it stared back at them. A guard smacked her shoulder with the butt of his spear. "Bow your head, witch!" Aria didn't move. Her jaw tightened. Blood trickled from the corner of her lip, mingling with the rain. And then she smiled. A small broken curve that made the guard hesitate. "Sell me," she whispered, her voice quiet but sharp enough to cut through the noise. "But remember this face when the moon turns red." The words froze the air around them. Someone muttered a prayer. The auctioneer forced a laugh, pretending he hadn't just felt the temperature drop. "A fine tongue on this one. Let's start at—" A crack of thunder drowned his voice. The chains at Aria's wrists trembled, vibrating like they sensed her anger. Her pulse was wild. A rhythm that didn't belong to fear anymore. It belonged to something awakening. Her power. The same power that had destroyed her home, that had turned her from heir to exile. She'd sworn never to let it loose again. But the storm didn't care about oaths. The storm wanted her free. A flash of light blinded the crowd as the iron clasp at her wrist snapped open. Gasps rose, followed by chaos. Guards shouting, nobles scattering, the auctioneer shrieking about witchcraft. Aria didn't wait. She ran. Her bare feet pounded against the wet stones, the marketplace dissolving into a blur of rain and screams. Behind her, soldiers shouted orders. The sound of pursuit chased her heartbeat. She pushed harder, lungs burning, chains clattering as she darted through the labyrinth of marble columns. Every drop of rain felt like a reminder. Cold, relentless, honest. She stumbled through mud, tearing the hem of her torn robe. A dog barked in the distance. Hooves thundered on stone. She turned a corner and froze. Ahead, the alley split into darkness and death. To the left, the open gates of the city, guarded. To the right, a stairway that led into the ruins below the amphitheater, the same ruins where prisoners were left to rot. Lightning struck again, illuminating her reflection in a puddle. For a second she saw herself, not the captive, but the creature beneath the skin. The faint outline of her wolf form shimmered in her eyes. Not now. Not here. She ducked into the ruins, slipping through cracks in the wall just wide enough for her thin frame. The air inside was heavy, thick with the scent of dust and blood. Statues of forgotten gods stared from the shadows, their stone eyes hollow. Aria leaned against the wall, chest heaving, her body trembling with exhaustion. Every inch of her screamed to shift, to let the wolf take over, to run until the world disappeared, but she couldn't risk it. The mark on her shoulder burned, glowing faintly through the torn fabric. She pressed her hand to it, whispering, "Not yet." Outside, the soldiers' footsteps thundered past. She could hear their torches crackling, their voices echoing through the corridors. "Find her! She's wounded! She can't have gone far." Aria slid deeper into the dark. Her breathing slowed. The sound of dripping water filled the silence. Her heart pounded in her ears, matching the distant roll of thunder. For the first time in months, she let herself feel something other than rage. Fear. Not of death, but of herself. Because she could feel the silver flames stirring beneath her ribs, hungry, waiting for her to slip. She thought of her mother's face the night they'd cast her out, the way she'd whispered, "You must hide it, Aria. Hide it or they'll never stop hunting you." And she had hidden it, buried it under guilt and pain until she almost believed she was powerless. Almost. But now, the mark was awake again. The curse the priests feared, the prophecy her clan denied. Her birthright pulsed like a living thing. The walls shook as thunder rolled overhead, the storm outside raging like the turmoil inside her. She pressed her palm to the damp stone, grounding herself. The cold seeped into her bones, but it was better than the fire burning beneath her skin. She could hear their voices closer now. The soldiers were spreading out. Someone shouted orders in Latin, another cursed about losing a night's sleep for a runaway wolf. Aria closed her eyes. The world shrank to the sound of her heartbeat. In and out. Every breath tasted like iron and rain. Every inhale brought a flash of memory. Her brother's laughter, the fire, the screams. The night everything changed. The night she became the monster they said she was. And still, beneath all that pain, a single question burned. Why am I still alive? A drop of water fell from the ceiling onto her wrist. She flinched. Her nerves were stretched thin, every sense alive. She could smell the sweat of the men searching for her, the oil of their torches, the faint tang of blood. The wolf inside her stirred again. "Shift," it whispered. "Fight." But she stayed still, trembling. Because she knew what happened the last time she listened. She crouched lower, hugging her knees, the sound of chains still clinging to her ankles. The faint shimmer of her mark cast a ghostly glow against the damp wall. It looked almost beautiful, if not for the blood drying beneath it. Outside, the storm screamed. The marketplace bells tolled midnight. Somewhere in the distance, a wolf howled, a sound so lonely and raw that it carved through her chest. She closed her eyes and let a single tear fall. Not for herself, but for what she'd lost, for what she still couldn't stop being. When she opened them again, the silver in her gaze burned brighter. She wasn't done yet. She stood, slow and deliberate, every muscle tight with defiance. The fear in her veins hardened into something else. Resolve. She might be hunted. She might be broken. But she was still Blood Moon. And if the gods wanted a monster, she'd show them one worth remembering. Outside, thunder cracked so loud it rattled the walls. Aria stepped into the open archway, the rain washing over her face, blood mixing with water, dirt sliding down her skin. The torches of the soldiers glowed faintly in the distance, their shouts faint under the roar of the storm. Her heartbeat synced with the thunder, steady, powerful, alive. The cold wind whipped through her hair, lifting it like a crown. For the first time in years, she didn't hide her mark. Let them come. Let them see. She would not die caged. She would not bow again. And as she took her first step into the rain, a whisper moved through the night, a vow carried on the storm itself. This is not your end, Aria. This is where your legend begins. The chains at her feet clinked with every step until one finally slipped loose, falling into the mud behind her. She didn't look back. She just kept walking, barefoot and bleeding, through the heart of the storm, toward a world that would either destroy her or learn to kneel. Her pulse throbbed like a war drum. Each breath filled her chest with something fierce and electric. Hope. Fragile. Foolish. Burning hope. She disappeared into the storm's mouth, swallowed by darkness and thunder, leaving only the echo of her heartbeat behind. And somewhere beyond the storm, fate stirred. Because tonight wasn't just her escape. It was the beginning of something the world wasn't ready for. A mark had been made. A story had begun. And destiny was watching. Rain became ash on her tongue. The storm had swallowed the sky whole. And the night pulsed with the scent of danger and wet earth. Aria's lungs burned as she stumbled across the field beyond the market, her bare feet cutting through the thorns, her pulse a drumbeat of survival. The wind tore at her cloak, lightning painting her body in flashes of white and silver. Every shadow moved like an enemy. Every echo of thunder sounded like pursuit. Then she heard them. The soldiers. Their torches flared through the rain like dying suns. The air shimmered with the tang of silver blades. Their shouts carried through the darkness. Orders, curses, the hunger for her blood. She pressed herself against the ruins of a crumbled wall, chest heaving, body slick with rain and sweat. The mark on her shoulder seared under her skin, glowing faintly through the fabric. It wasn't just pain. It was summoning. A call that made no sense. It pulled at her like gravity, something ancient and unrelenting, demanding she look east, toward the forest that bordered the city walls. The ground trembled. At first, she thought it was thunder. But then came the low, rolling growl, a sound too deep, too alive. Every instinct in her screamed to run. She turned, frozen by the sight cutting through the storm. A shape moved in the darkness, vast and unnatural. Eyes like molten gold burned through the rain. A wolf, massive, towering, fur black as iron and dripping with water. Its presence swallowed sound itself. Soldiers stopped shouting. The night held its breath. The creature stepped into the torchlight, muscles coiled beneath its skin, breath steaming against the cold air. Lightning fractured the sky behind it, crowning it in fire. The scent of dominance hit her like a blow. Every part of her wolf blood recognized what it meant. Alpha. The soldiers wavered, their courage breaking. One tried to raise his spear, but the wolf moved faster than thought. A blur of darkness and power. Metal twisted, bodies hit the ground, and torches fell, snuffed out in the mud. The air rang with the violence of silence. Aria stood frozen, drenched and trembling, every heartbeat echoing the storm. Then, before her eyes, the massive wolf began to change. Bones cracked, fur receded, and the shape shifted into that of a man, tall, broad, drenched in rain, his skin traced by scars that told stories older than empires. His eyes glowed like twin suns even after the shift. He stood naked in the storm, utterly unashamed, power rolling off him like heat from a forge. Her pulse stopped. The mark on his neck burned gold, the same mark that lived beneath her own skin. The soldiers who still stood dropped to their knees instantly. Their voices trembled. Alpha Calum. His voice was thunder wrapped in control. Stand down. No one argued. Even the storm seemed to pause. Aria took a step back, mud clutching at her feet. Her instinct was to fight, to run, to never be claimed again. "Don't touch me," she hissed. Calum's gaze snapped to her. For the first time, the mask of command cracked. There was recognition there, fear even. He stepped closer, his eyes searching hers as though seeing a ghost. "Aria." The sound of her name on his lips hit her like lightning. "How do you know me?" His jaw clenched, his voice low. "Because I marked you." The words didn't make sense. She shook her head, fury slicing through confusion. "You're lying. My mark is ancient. My curse is mine alone." He moved closer, slow, deliberate, his power curling through the air. "Not by choice. During the last blood moon hunt, He stopped himself, as if even speaking it burned. The moon chose. I didn't. Aria's pulse roared in her ears. "You marked me? By mistake?" The admission came out ragged, like he was confessing a sin. "Yes." Silence broke between them, heavy and alive. Rain poured between their bodies, steam rising from the heat of their nearness. Her breath caught as the glow beneath his skin pulsed in rhythm with her own. The mark answered him. It shouldn't have. She could feel it, heat spreading from her collarbone through every nerve, drawn toward him. The closer he came, the stronger it grew, until it hurt to breathe. He lifted his hand, fingers trembling, not from fear, but restraint. His palm hovered inches from her cheek, the space between them charged, dangerous. It wasn't supposed to be you. Her body betrayed her. Her wolf surged against her chest, pressing toward him, desperate for the connection that destiny had already decided. But her mind fought it with every shred of will left in her. She flinched, snarling softly. "Then undo it." His gaze darkened. "You think I haven't tried?" The admission carried exhaustion, the kind that comes from too many sleepless nights and too many scars. "The moon doesn't make mistakes," he whispered. "It binds for a reason." Aria's heart twisted. "Then it's wrong. Whatever reason it had, it's wrong." He studied her as though memorizing every fracture in her soul. Rain streaked across his face, catching on the line of his jaw. "If it were wrong," he said quietly, "I wouldn't feel this." She hated the way her breath caught, the way her pulse answered his words before her mind could deny them. Lightning split the sky again, illuminating them in white fire. For a heartbeat, the world fell away. There was only the two of them, two marks burning, two destinies colliding in the storm. He stepped closer, slow, commanding, yet every movement a question. His scent filled the air, smoke, rain, and power. She could feel the heat of him even through the cold. When he spoke again, his voice was softer, almost reverent. "You feel it too." She wanted to deny it, to spit in his face and walk away. But the lie caught in her throat. Because she did feel it. The pull. The unbearable gravity that drew her toward him. As though her heart recognized something her mind refused to accept. Her fingers twitched. The urge to touch him warred with the instinct to run. Stay away from me. But he didn't. He moved until his shadow swallowed hers, until the sound of his heartbeat pressed against her own. If I could, he murmured, I would. His hand rose again, brushing a strand of wet hair from her face. His touch was careful, reverent, like he was afraid she might vanish. Her skin burned where his fingers grazed it. Her wolf stirred, not in anger, but in longing. She hated it. I'm not yours, she said through clenched teeth. I belong to no one. His eyes softened, but his words carried iron. You think I want this? He stepped back, the distance between them colder than the storm. You're chaos, Aria. The kind that rewrites everything it touches. Her pulse quickened. Then stay out of my path. He exhaled sharply, shaking his head. It's already too late. The mark flared again, brighter than before. Pain shot through her shoulder. She stumbled, grabbing at it, gasping. Calum's hand caught her before she fell, his grip steady and warm despite the rain. Their eyes locked. The glow between their marks pulsed once, then twice, then settled into a rhythm that matched their hearts. What's happening to me? She breathed. He held her tighter, his voice strained. The bond is waking. No, she whispered. No, it can't. It already has. She tried to pull away, but the mark burned hotter the farther she moved. His presence calmed it, and that truth terrified her more than anything. He seemed to sense it too. His expression shifted, something between awe and despair. The bond recognizes balance, he said quietly. You are what I'm not. Her laugh was hollow. And what's that? A curse? His gaze didn't waver. A choice. Thunder rumbled above them like a promise. The soldiers still knelt in the mud, heads bowed, too afraid to look up. The world had shrunk to just the two of them, bound by something neither asked for but couldn't deny. For a moment, neither spoke. The storm howled. Her breath trembled. And in that fragile stillness, she saw something break inside him. He looked at her not like a possession, not like prey, but like redemption. Aria's chest tightened. Because that look, it made her remember the part of herself that still wanted to be seen. Then he dropped his hand, stepping back, his voice returning to command. You can fight me, Aria. Hate me if you must, but don't stand in the open like prey. They'll come for you again. Why do you care? He hesitated. Because if you die, so do I. Her heart stopped. What? He turned away, rain cascading down his back, muscles flexing under the strain of control. The mark isn't just binding, it's life for life. If one falls, the other follows. Her stomach twisted. Then you've doomed us both. He faced her again, eyes glowing faintly gold through the rain. Then survive. If not for yourself, then for me. Lightning flashed once more, and he was gone. Vanished into the storm, his scent lingering in the air like the echo of something forbidden. Aria stood there in the downpour, her body trembling, her soul on fire. Every instinct told her to run from him. But the mark beneath her skin whispered another truth. He was her curse. He was her tether. And whether she wanted it or not, their fates were now one. She turned toward the forest, the storm at her back, and walked into the darkness that waited, each step a battle, each breath a vow. She would find out why the moon chose him. And when she did, she would break this bond, or burn the world trying. If stories of forbidden love and deadly fates draw you in, subscribe to Sophie's Romance Collections. where passion defies every rule, and the fire inside every broken heart still dares to burn. Rain became ash on her tongue. The storm had swallowed the sky whole, and the night pulsed with the scent of danger and wet earth. Aria's lungs burned as she stumbled across the field beyond the market, her bare feet cutting through the thorns. Her pulse a drumbeat of survival. The wind tore at her cloak, lightning painting her body in flashes of white and silver. Every shadow moved like an enemy. Every echo of thunder sounded like pursuit. Then she heard them. The soldiers. Their torches flared through the rain like dying suns. The air shimmered with the tang of silver blades. Their shouts carried through the darkness. Orders, curses, the hunger for her blood. She pressed herself against the ruins of a crumbled wall, chest heaving, body slick with rain and sweat. The mark on her shoulder seared under her skin, glowing faintly through the fabric. It wasn't just pain, it was summoning. A call that made no sense. It pulled at her like gravity, something ancient and unrelenting, demanding she look east, toward the forest that bordered the city walls. The ground trembled. At first, she thought it was thunder, but then came the low, rolling growl, a sound too deep, too alive. Every instinct in her screamed to run. She turned, frozen by the sight cutting through the storm. A shape moved in the darkness, vast and unnatural. Eyes like molten gold burned through the rain. A wolf, massive, towering, fur black as iron and dripping with water. Its presence swallowed sound itself. Soldiers stopped shouting. The night held its breath. The creature stepped into the torchlight, muscles coiled beneath its skin, breath steaming against the cold air. Lightning fractured the sky behind it, crowning it in fire. The scent of dominance hit her like a blow. Every part of her wolf blood recognized what it meant. Alpha. The soldiers wavered, their courage breaking. One tried to raise his spear, but the wolf moved faster than thought. A blur of darkness and power. Metal twisted, bodies hit the ground, and torches fell, snuffed out in the mud. The air rang with the violence of silence. Aria stood frozen, drenched and trembling, every heartbeat echoing the storm. Then before her eyes, the massive wolf began to change. Bones cracked, fur receded, and the shape shifted into that of a man. Tall, broad, drenched in rain, his skin traced by scars that told stories older than empires. His eyes glowed like twin suns even after the shift. He stood naked in the storm, utterly unashamed, power rolling off him like heat from a forge. Her pulse stopped. The mark on his neck burned gold, the same mark that lived beneath her own skin. The soldiers who still stood dropped to their knees instantly. Their voices trembled. Alpha Calum. His voice was thunder wrapped in control. Stand down. No one argued. Even the storm seemed to pause. Aria took a step back, mud clutching at her feet. Her instinct was to fight, to run, to never be claimed again. Don't touch me, she hissed. Calum's gaze snapped to her. For the first time, the mask of command cracked. There was recognition there. Fear, even. He stepped closer, his eyes searching hers as though seeing a ghost. Aria. The sound of her name on his lips hit her like lightning. How do you know me? His jaw clenched, his voice low. Because I marked you. The words didn't make sense. She shook her head, fury slicing through confusion. You're lying. My mark is ancient. My curse is mine alone. He moved closer, slow, deliberate, his power curling through the air. Not by choice. During the last blood moon hunt, He stopped himself. As if even speaking it burned. The moon chose. I didn't. Aria's pulse roared in her ears. You marked me. By mistake? The admission came out ragged, like he was confessing a sin. Yes. Silence broke between them, heavy and alive. Rain poured between their bodies, steam rising from the heat of their nearness. Her breath caught as the glow beneath his skin pulsed in rhythm with her own. The mark answered him. It shouldn't have. She could feel it, heat spreading from her collarbone through every nerve, drawn toward him. The closer he came, the stronger it grew, until it hurt to breathe. He lifted his hand, fingers trembling, not from fear, but restraint. His palm hovered inches from her cheek, the space between them charged, dangerous. It wasn't supposed to be you. Her body betrayed her. Her wolf surged against her chest, pressing toward him, desperate for the connection that destiny had already decided. But her mind fought it with every shred of will left in her. She flinched, snarling softly. Then undo it. His gaze darkened. You think I haven't tried? The admission carried exhaustion, the kind that comes from too many sleepless nights and too many scars. The moon doesn't make mistakes, he whispered. It binds for a reason. Aria's heart twisted. Then it's wrong. Whatever reason it had, it's wrong. He studied her as though memorizing every fracture in her soul. Rain streaked across his face, catching on the line of his jaw. If it were wrong, he said quietly, I wouldn't feel this. She hated the way her breath caught, the way her pulse answered his words before her mind could deny them. Lightning split the sky again, illuminating them in white fire. For a heartbeat, the world fell away. There was only the two of them, two marks burning, two destinies colliding in the storm. He stepped closer, slow, commanding, yet every movement a question. His scent filled the air, smoke, rain, and power. She could feel the heat of him even through the cold. When he spoke again, his voice was softer, almost reverent. You feel it too. She wanted to deny it, to spit in his face and walk away. But the lie caught in her throat. Because she did feel it. The pull. The unbearable gravity that drew her toward him, as though her heart recognized something her mind refused to accept. Her fingers twitched. The urge to touch him warred with the instinct to run. Stay away from me. But he didn't. He moved until his shadow swallowed hers, until the sound of his heartbeat pressed against her own. If I could, he murmured, I would. His hand rose again, brushing a strand of wet hair from her face. His touch was careful, reverent, like he was afraid she might vanish. Her skin burned where his fingers grazed it. Her wolf stirred, not in anger, but in longing. She hated it. I'm not yours, she said through clenched teeth. I belong to no one. His eyes softened, but his words carried iron. You think I want this? He stepped back, the distance between them colder than the storm. You're chaos, Aria, the kind that rewrites everything it touches. Her pulse quickened. Then stay out of my path. He exhaled sharply, shaking his head. It's already too late. The mark flared again, brighter than before. Pain shot through her shoulder. She stumbled, grabbing at it. Gasping. Calem's hand caught her before she fell, his grip steady and warm despite the rain. Their eyes locked. The glow between their marks pulsed once, then twice, then settled into a rhythm that matched their hearts. What's happening to me? She breathed. He held her tighter, his voice strained. The bond is waking. No, she whispered. No, it can't. It already has. She tried to pull away, but the mark burned hotter the farther she moved. His presence calmed it, and that truth terrified her more than anything. He seemed to sense it too. His expression shifted, something between awe and despair. The bond recognizes balance, he said quietly. You are what I'm not. Her laugh was hollow. And what's that? A curse? His gaze didn't waver. A choice. Thunder rumbled above them like a promise. The soldiers still knelt in the mud, heads bowed, too afraid to look up. The world had shrunk to just the two of them, bound by something neither asked for but couldn't deny. For a moment, neither spoke. The storm howled. Her breath trembled. And in that fragile stillness, she saw something break inside him. He looked at her not like a possession, not like prey, but like redemption. Aria's chest tightened. Because that look, it made her remember the part of herself that still wanted to be seen. Then he dropped his hand, stepping back, his voice returning to command. You can fight me, Aria. Hate me if you must, but don't stand in the open like prey. They'll come for you again. Why do you care? He hesitated. Because if you die, so do I. Her heart stopped. What? He turned away, rain cascading down his back. Muscles flexing under the strain of control. The mark isn't just binding, it's life for life. If one falls, the other follows. Her stomach twisted. Then you've doomed us both. He faced her again, eyes glowing faintly gold through the rain. Then survive. If not for yourself, then for me. Lightning flashed once more, and he was gone, vanished into the storm, his scent lingering in the air like the echo of something forbidden. Aria stood there in the downpour, her body trembling, her soul on fire. Every instinct told her to run from him, but the mark beneath her skin whispered another truth. He was her curse. He was her tether. And whether she wanted it or not, their fates were now one. She turned toward the forest, the storm at her back, and walked into the darkness that waited. Each step a battle, each breath a vow. She would find out why the moon chose him. And when she did, she would break this bond, or burn the world trying. The rain eased by the time she reached the outskirts of the forest, but the cold refused to leave her bones. The path ahead wound through twisted trees and stone pillars older than memory, remnants of a time when gods and wolves shared the same tongue. Her breath came in soft bursts, her mind chasing itself in circles, trying to make sense of what had just happened. The forest floor glimmered faintly beneath the storm's leftover mist. Each drop of water mirrored the moon's fractured reflection, and every sound seemed amplified. The crackle of wet leaves, the echo of her footsteps, the whisper of the mark beneath her skin. It pulsed again, faintly, as though reminding her it was still there, still connected. She wanted to tear it out, to claw it from her flesh until there was nothing left. But she couldn't. The bond was alive, woven deep into her blood, and it hummed with his presence. Even when she couldn't see Calum, she could feel the distant rhythm of his heartbeat like a memory that refused to fade. When the trees opened into a clearing, she stopped. Before her stood the remnants of an old temple, columns carved with wolf sigils, vines crawling through the cracks, and stone altars draped in moss. The air here was different, heavy, sacred, alive with the echoes of rituals long forgotten. She stepped into the silence, brushing her fingers across the stone wall. Symbols burned faintly under her touch, reacting to her presence. The scent of smoke and salt filled her lungs, and suddenly, memory clawed its way to the surface. It started with laughter, soft, innocent, a child's laughter under the crimson light of a blood moon. Then screams, then fire. Aria sank to her knees, hands clutching her head as the past ripped through her like lightning. She was back there, standing before the circle of her pack, the night of her coming-of-age shift. The sky bled red. The air throbbed with the pulse of drums. Her family stood proud at the edge of the clearing. Her father, the Alpha, tall and strong. Her mother, radiant and trembling with hope. Her brother, Orion, grinning, teasing her about how her first shift would make her look like a drenched pup. Then the pain came. The first crack of bone, the first tear of flesh, the primal scream as her wolf clawed its way free. But it didn't stop there. Something went wrong. The world drowned in silver fire. Her body burned from the inside out. The moon's power rushed through her veins like molten glass, and when she opened her eyes again, Orion was on the ground. His body still. His mark gone dark. Her power had consumed him. The drums stopped. The wind died. And in that terrible silence, she saw the look on her father's face. One of fear, not grief. Fear. The pack declared her cursed. A danger. A creature touched by the moon's wrath. By dawn, they had branded her with the mark of exile. Her mother cried as the iron pressed against her skin, whispering that love could not save her now. Her father said nothing. And as the flames rose from the ruins of her home, she walked away from everything she had ever known, carrying the guilt like a second heart that refused to stop beating. Back in the temple, Aria's body shook. Her breath hitched in shallow bursts as tears mixed with the rain still dripping from her hair. "I killed him," she whispered. "I killed my own blood." A sound stirred behind her, a rustle of boots against stone. She didn't turn. She already knew. Calem's presence filled the room before his voice did. There was something in his silence. Weight, respect, maybe pain. When he finally spoke, his tone was soft, stripped of all authority. "You were a child." Aria's jaw tightened. Children don't burn their brothers alive. He stepped closer, slow enough not to startle her, his voice low. Children make mistakes when the world forces them to carry the power of gods. She looked over her shoulder. The torchlight from the corridor flickered across his face, painting the hard lines of his jaw, the shadows beneath his eyes. He looked older now, not in years, but in grief. "You talk like you understand," she said bitterly. "I do." He knelt beside her, setting his hand on the cracked altar. His eyes followed the symbols carved into the stone. "I lost my pack too. Betrayal tore it apart from the inside. I watched my brother lead them into war for a crown neither of us wanted. When it ended, all that remained were ashes and names carved into stone." He traced one of the runes absently, his voice barely above a whisper. "And I was the one who survived." Aria's anger softened, replaced by something heavier. Recognition. Two souls marked by different tragedies, bound by the same wound. She leaned back against the pillar, exhaling shakily. "Survival feels like punishment." He glanced at her. "Maybe it is. Or maybe it's a second chance to do something with the pain." She laughed quietly, but there was no joy in it. Pain doesn't build. It destroys. He didn't argue. He simply looked at her, the kind of look that stripped away pretense. "Then why are you still fighting?" The question hit deeper than she expected, because she didn't know. Maybe it was instinct, maybe defiance, or maybe because some part of her still believed she was more than her worst moment. Her gaze dropped to the mark glowing faintly on her shoulder. The light shimmered like liquid silver beneath her skin. "This power," she said, her voice distant, "it was never meant for me. The blood moon flame. It's supposed to pass to the next heir when they're chosen by the moon. But the moon didn't choose me. It consumed me." Calem's expression sharpened. "The silver flame?" She nodded. "A rare gift, my mother called it. It burns through deception, through curses. It reveals truth, but truth destroys as easily as it heals. It's why they feared me, why they called me cursed. Because once you see the truth, you can't unsee it." He tilted his head slightly. And you still carry it? Whether I want to or not. Her fingers brush the mark absently. It's alive. It feeds on what's hidden. Secrets, lies, broken promises. Every time I tried to bury my past, it burned me from the inside. So I stopped trying. For a long moment, there was only silence. Then Calum spoke, voice low and reverent. You call it a curse, but maybe it's the one thing that makes you free. Aria looked at him sharply. Free? He nodded. You see what others can't. You carry a power no council, no alpha, no god can control. That's not a curse. That's terror. At least to those who built their thrones on lies. She stared at him, trying to decide if he believed his own words, or if he was just trying to soothe her guilt. But his eyes gave him away. There was no pity there, no manipulation, just understanding. For the first time in years, someone wasn't afraid of her power. The realization unsettled her more than comforted her. She turned her face away, focusing on the altar's flickering light. Your faith in me is misplaced, Alpha. I've lost faith in a lot of things, he murmured, but I haven't lost it in what's real. And right now, you're the only thing that feels real. Her breath caught. She didn't want those words to mean anything, but the mark between them pulsed again. Warm, slow, deliberate. Don't say things like that, she whispered. Why not? Because it makes it harder to hate you. He smiled faintly, the kind of smile that looked like it hurt to make. Maybe hate's a start. It means you still feel. The silence stretched, heavy with something unspoken. The temple's air seemed to hum between them. Aria's chest rose and fell too quickly, her body betraying the storm inside her. She didn't move when he reached for her hand. His fingers brushed hers, tentative, unsure. Her skin prickled with heat. The bond mark flared again, responding to the touch. Two glows, pulsing in rhythm, merging briefly into one. The air trembled. Aria's throat tightened. The bond. He nodded slowly. It's growing stronger. She wanted to pull away, to put space between them before the bond consumed her, but her hand stayed in his. It shouldn't feel like this, she said softly. Like gravity. He met her gaze, his eyes steady. It always does. The only difference is what you choose to do with it. Something in her broke at that, some wall she'd built long ago to keep the world out. The sound of his voice, the warmth of his hand, the honesty in his silence. It made her remember what it felt like to be seen without judgment. She didn't know if it was the bond or something deeper, but in that moment, she didn't care. Her pulse slowed. The mark dimmed. For the first time since the exile, her chest didn't feel like it was caving in. Calum's thumb brushed the inside of her wrist, grounding her. His voice was barely audible. You don't have to run anymore. Her eyes glistened. Then what do I do? He leaned closer, his breath warm against her temple. You let yourself exist. The simplicity of the words undid her. She inhaled shakily, closing her eyes, letting the sound of the storm outside become a distant echo. For once, she wasn't a curse, or a monster, or a threat. She was just a woman sitting in the ruins of her past, beside someone who refused to fear her. And in the dim light of that forgotten temple, something inside her began to heal. Not with fire, but with quiet understanding. But healing, like all things born of pain, came with a warning. Because peace, she knew, never lasted long. The air hung heavy with the scent of rain and burning incense. Moonlight poured through the broken arches of the grove, painting everything in silver fire. Aria stood there, her breath unsteady, the ghost of the priestess's words still echoing like a curse that refused to fade. When the flame meets the iron, blood will rewrite the throne. The prophecy tasted of ash and promise, of something too vast for either of them to control. Her heart pounded, not from fear alone, but from knowing that somehow every road she had run from led her straight to this moment. Caelim's eyes caught hers across the ruins. That molten gold burned through the shadows, not as a conqueror's gaze, but as a man who had seen too much, lost too much, and still dared to believe in something impossible. His hand flexed slightly, as though restraining himself from reaching for her. His voice was low, raw. "You felt it too," he said. It wasn't a question. It was recognition. Aria tried to steady her breathing. Her voice trembled. "I don't want this. Whatever this destiny is. I've already destroyed everything I've touched." Her words cracked like brittle glass. Memories of fire and screams flickered behind her eyes. Her brother's face, her mother's silence, the silver flames that had burned through their ancestral home. The air shifted around her as if the earth itself mourned what she'd lost. Caelim stepped closer, slow and deliberate, his shadow merging with hers on the cracked marble. "You think you're the only one marked by ruin?" His tone softened, carrying the ache of confession. "My entire legion was slaughtered because I hesitated to kill a friend. The Senate branded me traitor. The gods, if they ever cared, turned their backs long before yours did." His words didn't reach her as comfort, but as a mirror, reflecting her pain in a language she finally understood. Aria's pulse thrummed in her ears. The mark on her shoulder burned faintly beneath her torn tunic, responding to the rhythm of his voice. The same glow traced across his neck, faint yet undeniable. The seal of the alpha flame and iron. Fate didn't just bind them. It mocked them, threading their scars together like stitches on a wound that refused to close. The priestess's form flickered again near the altar, her translucent eyes unblinking. "The moon remembers what blood forgets," she whispered, her voice bending like wind through stone. "You cannot run from the bond that remade you. Together you rise, or together you are undone." And then she was gone, leaving behind only the faint scent of myrrh and lightning. Aria's knees weakened. "I never asked for this," she murmured, staring at the floor, where moonlight carved her reflection in trembling silver. "I never wanted to be anything more than free." Caelim's jaw tightened. He took another step closer, the weight of his presence wrapping around her like heat. "Freedom doesn't mean running," he said quietly. "Sometimes it means choosing what chains you'll break, and who you'll break them with." The words cut deeper than she wanted them to. For a heartbeat, she wished she could hate him, could blame him for the way her pulse betrayed her, for the way the air between them hummed with something alive. But she couldn't. Because beneath his armor and defiance, she saw it. The same loneliness, the same fire that had burned her world to ashes. A low rumble tremored through the ground, faint but steady, like the heartbeat of something ancient stirring beneath the ruins. The air shimmered, and faint symbols began to glow along the stone walls. Moons, wolves, and spirals of fire. Aria stumbled backward, her hand brushing one of the glowing sigils. The stone pulsed beneath her fingers, and a vision ripped through her mind like a storm. Wolves bowing before an unseen crown. Rivers of flame devouring marble cities, and two figures standing against it all, their hands bound by light and blood. She gasped, clutching her chest, the vision fading as quickly as it came. Caelim was already at her side, his hands steadying her shoulders. His touch was too warm, too grounding, and it scared her how much she needed it. "What did you see?" he asked. Her lips trembled. "The end," she whispered. "Or the beginning. I don't know which." He didn't let go. His thumb brushed a streak of mud from her jaw, and the contact sent a shiver through both of them. "Then maybe it's both," he said. The world seemed to hold its breath. The storm outside the temple had quieted, but inside, a different kind of thunder brewed. The quiet kind that lived between two hearts standing on the edge of something neither could name. Aria looked up at him, her defenses slipping, if only for a moment. His eyes softened, not with pity, but with recognition. She wanted to speak, to push him away, to tell him that whatever bond fate had written between them was a mistake. But the words refused to come. Because deep down, some fragile part of her, the part that still believed in warmth after all the cold, didn't want to let go. Calum broke the silence first. "The priestess called your mark a seal," he said. "The seal of the alpha flame. Do you know what that means?" Aria shook her head. "I thought it was a curse, something to mark me as unfit, dangerous." He exhaled, stepping toward the ancient altar where faded Roman runes circled a shattered bowl of obsidian. "It's older than curses. Older than the gods Rome worships. My legion once guarded the archives of the first Wolfkin tribes. I read of the flame line, a bloodline born when moonfire touched mortal flesh. Those who carried it could burn away deceit, command truth itself." Aria swallowed, the words tasting like memory. "But it cost them everything," she finished softly. He turned back to her. "Yes." Her gaze fell to the flickering symbols across the floor. "Then maybe I don't want it." He took another step closer. "And yet it's already yours." The tension between them coiled tighter than before. His voice dropped, rough as gravel. "You think this bond is an accident? That the moon just missed her aim?" Aria's chest rose sharply. "You said you marked me by mistake." "I did," he said, almost a whisper. "But mistakes don't burn like this." His hand brushed against his neck where the matching mark glowed faintly. This feels like a command written in our blood." Her pulse stuttered. For a moment, silence stretched. Only their breathing filled the space. Then she took a step back, as if distance might save her from what she already felt. "If this bond is fate," she said, her voice breaking, "then fate is cruel." Calum's gaze softened, but he didn't move to stop her. "Cruel doesn't mean wrong." The ruins moaned as wind tore through the archways, carrying whispers of ancient voices. The moon climbed higher, bathing them both in its merciless light. The bond mark between them flared once more, bright enough to paint their shadows on the stone. Aria pressed a trembling hand against her shoulder, feeling the burn beneath her skin. She wanted to scream, to rip it away, to undo the pull that tethered her to him. But deep inside, she knew, whatever destiny was unraveling, it had begun long before either of them was born. The priestess's words came back to her again, like the memory of a nightmare she couldn't wake from. "Together you rise, or together you are undone." And though she didn't want to admit it, Aria could feel it, the rising, the way the air seemed to shift when he was near, the way her heart no longer beat just for her. Somewhere beyond the ruins, wolves howled, a call that felt older than the stars. Calum's eyes lifted toward the sound, and for the first time since the storm, he smiled, not with triumph, but with quiet, stubborn hope. "We're not done," he said. "Not yet." Aria looked at him, torn between the instinct to run and the ache to stay. "Then what are we?" she asked. He met her gaze, steady and unflinching. Something the gods didn't plan for. And as the ruins trembled once more under the pull of ancient power, the moon burned brighter, and the prophecy whispered again. Not as a curse this time, but as a promise reborn in the quiet space between fear and desire. If stories of forbidden love and deadly fates draw you in, his voice seemed to linger like smoke. Subscribe to Sophie's romance collections, where passion defies every rule. The night was thick with the scent of pine and rain-soaked earth. Smoke still clung to the air from the torches that had burned through the ruins hours ago. Aria could feel it, the world tightening its grip around her, every whisper of wind carrying the echo of betrayal. Somewhere beyond the hills, the sound of war drums rolled like distant thunder. Word had spread faster than wildfire. They were coming for her. The unmarked she-wolf who carried the forbidden flame. The outcast who had been claimed by the Roman Alpha. The grove that had once been silent now pulsed with life. Hundreds gathered beneath the crimson-tinged moon, their torches lighting the shadows like stars falling from heaven. Faces she didn't recognize stared from the dark. Rival packs, mercenaries, bounty hunters, and priests wearing silver-threaded robes. Each of them had come for one thing: her head. Calum stood at her side, his expression unreadable, his armor slick with rain and blood. The wound on his shoulder still wept where the silver arrow had grazed him earlier, but he refused to show pain. He stood tall, his golden eyes hard as molten iron, daring anyone to take a step closer. The air was alive with murmurs. The flame must be extinguished. The gods warned us. She'll bring ruin. Aria's pulse hammered against her ribs, but her face betrayed nothing. She had learned long ago that fear was a scent the world devoured. The high priest stepped forward, his hands raised toward the bleeding moon. His voice boomed across the clearing. The bond between mortal flame and imperial blood defies the law of both moon and man. Tonight, we purify what should never have been born. A circle of robed figures surrounded her, chanting low and rhythmic. The ground beneath her feet shimmered faintly. The same ancient sigils that had once bound the flame line glowed again, now used to cage rather than protect. Aria's heart clenched. The moonfire in her veins stirred like a sleeping beast. Calum moved forward, breaking the circle with a single stride. Enough! His voice was calm, but it carried the weight of command that no mortal dared to defy. You will not touch her. The priest sneered. You, Roman, are already touched by her curse. You carry her corruption on your flesh. Calum's hand went to the mark at his neck. For a moment, his resolve faltered, the ache of the bond whispering beneath his skin. He looked at Aria, and in her eyes, he saw the same turmoil mirrored back, a storm of guilt, longing, and something neither of them had words for. Then, before either could speak, the first arrow flew. It sliced through the air with a hiss, embedding itself in the ground inches from Aria's feet. The next came faster, then 10 more. A storm of silver-tipped death rained down upon them. Calum's reflexes took over. He lunged, wrapping his arms around her as the arrows struck the earth where she had been standing. Pain seared through his shoulder, one shaft piercing deep into the muscle. He grunted, teeth bared, but didn't let go. His body shielded hers completely. The circle dissolved into chaos. Warriors clashed, the air filling with the sound of steel and howling. Flames burst from overturned torches, and the scent of burning fur and blood choked the night. Aria's power surged before she could stop it. Her eyes glowed silver, and a wave of heat rippled from her skin, knocking back the nearest attackers. The runes beneath her cracked, molten light seeping through the fractures. "Run!" Calum growled, his voice rough with pain. But she didn't move, not at first. Because for the first time in years, she wasn't afraid. The silver fire burned through her veins, answering a call older than the moon itself. Her hands trembled, but not from weakness. She raised her palm, and the light obeyed. Arrows turned to ash before they reached her. The ground quaked. The chanting stopped. Every eye turned toward her. Even Calum, bleeding, panting, looked at her as if seeing her for the first time. The priest's voice broke through the stunned silence. "She is the flame reborn. End her now, before the prophecy consumes us all." Dozens of blades lifted. Calum moved before any of them could strike. His wolf instincts took over. His body rippled. Bones cracking, muscles shifting. The transformation was brutal and beautiful. A nightmare wrapped in divinity. In seconds, the alpha of the Iron Fang Legion stood before them, a creature of obsidian fur and fire gold eyes. He tore through the nearest attackers, his movements swift and precise. Blood sprayed the stones. The air filled with snarls and screams. Aria fell to her knees, not from fear, but from the weight of what she had unleashed. The silver light dimmed, leaving behind trembling exhaustion. She could barely see through the haze. Then, silence. When her vision cleared, she saw him, Calum, standing in the center of the carnage, surrounded by the fallen. His fur was soaked with blood, his chest heaving, eyes still blazing. And despite everything, despite the horror around them, the bond between them pulsed like a heartbeat. The surviving priests fled into the trees. The world had just witnessed the impossible, and fear would carry the tale far beyond the forest. Calum shifted back, collapsing to one knee. The arrow in his shoulder had turned black where the silver had poisoned him. Aria crawled to him, hands shaking. "Don't you dare die on me," she whispered. He looked up at her, a faint smile ghosting across his lips. "You should run," he rasped. "The council will come for you now. They'll call me a traitor." Her jaw tightened. "Then let them." "Aria, I said let them." Her voice broke. "I didn't ask for this bond. I didn't ask for you to save me. But you did. And now I'm supposed to just leave you to die because the world's afraid of what I am?" The silence that followed was raw. The firelight danced across their faces, revealing everything they tried not to say. He reached out, his bloodied hand finding hers. "If you stay, you'll burn for it." "Then I'll burn." Their eyes locked, the bond between them tightening like a thread pulled taut by fate itself. But the sound of approaching hooves shattered the fragile stillness. The Legion was coming, his soldiers, his own men. Calum's expression hardened. "They won't stop until they have you. You have to go." Aria's throat ached. "And what about you?" "I'll hold them off." She shook her head, tears streaking through the dirt on her face. No, I won't." He gripped her hand, his strength fading. "You will. Because if you die, then none of this means anything." Her heart twisted. Every instinct screamed to fight, to stay, to defy. But his voice, steady, even as his blood stained the earth, anchored her in a way nothing else ever had. Finally, she nodded. Once. Then she turned and ran. Through the burning grove, through the falling ash, through the cries of the dying. The mark on her shoulder burned, the pull of the bond dragging at her every step. But she didn't look back. She couldn't. Behind her, the world she'd known was ending. When she finally reached the edge of the forest, the moon hung blood-red above the trees, swollen and merciless. The same moon that had watched her birth, her exile, her curse. She stopped, chest heaving, and looked up at it. The wind whipped through her hair, carrying the scent of smoke and war. Her hands clenched into fists. "No more running," she whispered. Her voice trembled, but the fire behind it was unbreakable. "I'll reclaim what's mine, or die defying the gods who took it." And as the blood moon bled across the sky, the flame within her flickered to life once more. Stronger, steadier, no longer a curse, but a vow. Somewhere behind her, in the depths of the burning grove, a wolf howled, a sound both broken and beautiful. And she knew without turning that it was him. Calum. The bond between them hadn't ended. It had only just begun. The forest was quieter than it had been in days. No drums, no shouts, no steel clashing. Only the sigh of the wind moving through the branches, carrying the damp scent of moss and blood. Aria sat beneath the shelter of a half-fallen oak, the night pressing close around her like a cloak. Her breath came slow, deliberate. Every rib ached. Every movement reminded her that she had survived. Barely. She had torn strips from her cloak and wrapped them tight around her wounds, but the ache beneath the bandages still pulsed like a second heartbeat. She pressed a trembling hand to her shoulder. The mark burned faintly beneath her skin, glowing with a light she could no longer deny. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw flashes, Calum's blood, the firestorm in the grove, the silver rain of arrows. And through it all, his voice. Run. She hated that she had obeyed. A branch cracked behind her. The sound was sharp, deliberate. Her head snapped up. Her senses stretched into the dark. The air shifted, pulling her attention toward the shadows between the trees. Then, his scent. Smoke. Iron. Rain. Before she saw him, she felt him. Calum stepped into the faint moonlight, the faintest trace of exhaustion carved into his features. His tunic was torn at the shoulder where the arrow had pierced him, and the wound, though half-healed, still glistened with dried blood. He looked like a ghost dragged out of war. Half man, half memory. Aria's heart stumbled in her chest. You shouldn't be here. He said nothing at first, just stood there in the quiet. His eyes, those gold fire eyes, found hers through the dark. Neither should you. She turned away, wrapping her cloak tighter. If your council finds you, they'll kill you for this. He gave a quiet, humorless laugh. They already tried. Something inside her twisted. She wanted to be angry, to tell him he was a fool for following her, but the words died in her throat. The forest swallowed their silence, and for a moment, it was enough. He moved closer, each step deliberate. Slow enough for her to stop him if she wanted to. She didn't. When he reached her, he knelt without a word and pulled a small satchel from his belt. The scent of crushed herbs filled the air as he opened it. Let me see. I can handle it. He looked up, one brow raised. You're shaking. Her jaw tightened. Because you keep walking into danger like you don't care if you live. His gaze softened, not with pity, but with something warmer. You think I don't care? He reached out, brushing her wrist. His hand was warm despite the cold. Her pulse jumped beneath his touch, betraying her. She hesitated, then let him unwrap the bandage. The wound beneath was ugly, still swollen around the edges. He pressed the poultice against it, and she hissed, the sting biting through her chest. Breathe, he murmured. It'll fade. You talk like you know pain. He smiled faintly. I do. He didn't look at her as he spoke, just focused on his work. My first kill was my brother. The air stilled. He didn't elaborate right away, and she didn't ask. The weight of the words was enough. When he finally looked up, there was no mask in his eyes. He challenged me during the blood hunt, said the gods had chosen him to lead. I didn't want it, but when he came for me... He swallowed. I hesitated. He didn't. The forest seemed to lean closer, listening. Aria's voice was quiet. And when it was done, I buried him myself, Calum said, the night after the moon turned red. I thought if I gave the gods his blood, they'd spare me the crown. His gaze flicked toward the firelight. They didn't. She watched him for a long time, the firelight painting gold across his scars. You carry it well. He shook his head. No one carries it well. Some just learn not to show the cracks. Something inside her ached. You think that makes you strong? He looked at her, the faintest trace of a smile tugging at his mouth. No, just human. Her breath hitched. For a heartbeat, she forgot the world outside the trees. The council, the priests, the blood. They all felt far away. She found herself speaking before she could stop the words. I keep seeing it. Seeing what? The dream. Her voice was soft, almost afraid. Fire swallowing the moon. Every night it burns brighter. I try to stop it, but my hands are the ones feeding the flames. Calem's gaze didn't waver. Dreams don't lie, Aria. They reveal what we're running from. And if I'm running from myself, then stop running. His words hit her harder than they should have. She turned her face toward the fire, the heat brushing her skin. You make it sound simple. It isn't, he said quietly. But neither is breathing, and you're still doing that. A small laugh escaped her, raw, involuntary. That's your advice? Just keep breathing? He leaned back slightly, watching her with that steady, unflinching focus that always made her feel both safe and exposed. It's worked for me so far. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was thick, humming with something unspoken. The kind of silence that existed only when words were too small to hold the truth. The fire crackled. Sparks rose into the dark like fallen stars. Their eyes met again. Longer this time. He reached out, fingers brushing a strand of hair from her face. The touch was careful, almost reverent. Her breath caught. Every instinct screamed to pull away, to protect herself, but she didn't. The space between them thinned until even the air felt fragile. She could feel his heartbeat through the mark, the steady rhythm syncing with hers. The bond they shared wasn't just power. It was something alive, something that pulsed between them like music only they could hear. He leaned in, his voice low. You don't have to trust the world, he whispered. Just trust me. Her lips parted. The words trembled in the air between them. I'm trying, she breathed. And in that moment, the war outside the forest ceased to exist. There was no prophecy, no curse, no blood. Only two souls caught in the quiet between heartbeats. The fire shifted, its light flickering across their faces. She could see the faint scar along his jaw, the shadow of exhaustion beneath his eyes. He wasn't a legend here. He wasn't an alpha. He was just a man, sitting in the ruins of a war he didn't ask for, looking at her like she was the only thing tethering him to life. Her pulse raced. The mark burned softly beneath her collarbone, not painful this time, just warm, insistent. He brushed his thumb across her cheek. Her breath hitched again. The distance between them dissolved. His lips hovered inches from hers, the question hanging there, unspoken. She wanted to close the space. She wanted to know how it would feel to forget, even for a moment, what the world demanded of them. But fear held her back. Not fear of him, fear of what it would mean if she gave in. Her voice broke the silence. Barely a whisper. If I trust you, what happens when the world takes you from me too? He didn't flinch. Then I'll fight my way back. Something inside her cracked. The fire roared louder for a moment, as if echoing her heartbeat. She exhaled slowly, eyes glistening. You shouldn't make promises like that. He smiled faintly, leaning just close enough that she could feel his breath. Then I'll make it a vow. The words sank into her like heat through ice. But before she could answer, before she could even move, the forest whispered again. The faint howl of a wolf echoed in the distance, followed by another. The world hadn't forgotten them. Not yet. She pulled back slightly, eyes flicking toward the shadows. They're close, he nodded. Then we move at dawn. The fragile moment between them lingered, suspended in the flicker of firelight. Neither said another word, but everything had changed. She leaned back against the tree, exhaustion finally settling in. The flames painted him in gold and shadow, every line of him sharp and sure. For the first time since her exile, she didn't feel alone. The storm that had ruled her heart for years had quieted, just for a heartbeat. And in that stillness, something new took root. Something dangerous, beautiful, and utterly real. When she closed her eyes, she didn't dream of fire this time. She dreamed of light. The temple was already half consumed by flame when the sky began to scream. The sound was not thunder, not wind. It was something older, something alive. The mountains trembled beneath it, and the wolves who had sworn loyalty to Lucienne bowed low, their bodies shaking under the weight of it. Aria walked through the inferno. Her steps left no ash behind. The flames bent around her, silver and alive, feeding on the power that pulsed through her veins. Every flicker of light mirrored the mark beneath her skin, now fully awake. No longer just a curse, but a force unbound. The temple's stone walls split, molten cracks glowing where prayers had once been carved. Statues of the moon goddess crumbled into dust, their faces erased by the heat. The air itself shimmered with power, the kind that no mortal should command. Across the burning courtyard, Lucien emerged. He was no longer the man he once pretended to be. His body had twisted into something vast and terrible, a hybrid of wolf and shadow, sinew and smoke, muscle rippling with dark light. His eyes burned black as the void between stars, his claws dragging deep scars into the earth. When he spoke, the words came from everywhere at once. "Do you see it now?" Aria didn't answer. Her gaze was calm, almost cold. The wind circled her, stirring her hair into a halo of silver flame. Lucien's voice deepened, layered with something that wasn't his own. "You were meant to fall, Aria. The gods marked you for sacrifice, not salvation." "Then they should have chosen someone willing to kneel," she said. The ground split open between them, molten rock bleeding from the wound. The scent of iron filled the air. Calum landed beside her in a blur of motion, bloodied, his breath ragged, his claws still slick from the last kill. His chest rose and fell, every inhale a struggle, but his eyes burned steady. "You shouldn't have come," she said, her voice trembling beneath the control she fought to keep. He gave a crooked half-smile. "You say that every time." Before she could answer, Lucien struck. The shadow beast lunged, claws shattering stone, his roar swallowing the world. Aria moved like fire given form, her body twisting, her silver light carving arcs through the air. Calum met Lucien's attack head-on, claws clashing with shadow, metal shrieking against the void. Their movements were chaos made poetry. Lucien's power bled through the temple, the flames turning black where he passed. Every swing of his arm carried the weight of something divine, a god's rage in mortal skin. The air warped under it, the sound of cracking bones and colliding elements merging into a single, endless note. Aria felt the pull deep inside her. The mark responded, not with pain, but with hunger. The fire wanted to be unleashed, to consume everything in its path, including her. Calum saw it in her eyes. "Don't hold back," he rasped. "If I do this," she said, "I won't stop." He met her gaze, blood streaking down his jaw. "Then I'll stop you." Lucien lunged again, and they moved together. Calem's claws sliced through shadow, every strike precise and brutal. Aria followed with blinding speed, her silver fire lashing out in arcs that seared through the darkness. Each collision shook the temple's foundation. Each breath came harder than the last. Lucien laughed, a horrible, echoing sound. "You think this ends with me?" "Everything ends with you," Aria spat. She thrust her hands forward, and the silver flame erupted, no longer fire, but light in its purest form. It struck Lucien square in the chest, driving him backward into the shattered altar. His scream tore through the heavens. For a heartbeat, silence. Then, shadows poured from the wound, writhing, hissing, spilling across the floor like liquid night. They crawled toward her, whispering her name in voices she almost recognized. Aria, child of the moon's betrayal, daughter of the flame that consumes gods. Her breath hitched. The whispers clawed at her mind, promising power, promising truth. Lucien rose again, weaker now but smiling. "You think you've won? You've only woken what sleeps below." His body collapsed into the shadows, dissolving into black mist that spread through the air. The temple cracked in half. Aria stumbled forward, clutching her head. The mark on her skin flared blindingly bright. The light wasn't warmth anymore. It was pain, pure and deep. She could feel something vast stirring beneath her feet, something ancient that had been waiting for this moment. Calem caught her before she fell. His arms locked around her, grounding her, his heartbeat wild against her back. "Stay with me," he whispered. "I can feel them," she said, voice trembling. "The old gods, they're waking." He tightened his grip. "Then let them wake. You're not theirs." Her body shook. The flames around her dimmed, their color shifting from silver to white, pure and searing. The whispers turned into screams, then silence. The world itself seemed to hold its breath. And then, light. It burst from her in a wave, swallowing the temple, the sky, the mountains beyond. Every shadow dissolved in its path. Wolves who had knelt rose to their feet, blinking against the brilliance. Those who had fled stopped running, turning toward her as if drawn by gravity itself. When the light faded, dawn had already touched the horizon. Smoke drifted in slow spirals. The ruins glowed faintly, and the once sacred altar now lay in shards. Calem was still holding her. His hand brushed her cheek, his thumb tracing the faint line of blood beneath her eye. "It's over," he said softly. But she didn't answer. Her gaze moved across the battlefield, at the bodies, at the ash, at the wolves standing in stunned silence, and then to the horizon, where the first rays of sunlight cut through the lingering smoke. "It's never over," she whispered. She stepped forward, out of his grasp, her bare feet touching the cold stone. The mark across her chest glowed faintly, not with pain now, but with something heavier. Purpose. Calem watched her, his expression unreadable. "What are you going to do?" Her voice was quiet, but it carried like thunder. "I'm not their curse." The wind stirred, picking up ash and light in its wake. "I am their reckoning." Every wolf in the clearing dropped to one knee, not out of fear, but awe. Aria lifted her hand, and the remnants of her silver flame rose with it, coiling around her arm, obedient now. Her power no longer fought her. It recognized her, accepted her. She turned her gaze toward the ruins of the temple, toward the place where Lucien had vanished. The shadows there still pulsed faintly, whispering from below the earth. She could hear them, waiting, hungry. Calem stepped beside her. His voice was low, steady. If what he said was true, if something else is coming, then we'll face it, she said, her tone absolute. He looked at her, the faintest trace of a smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. Together? Her eyes met his. Always. They stood in the ruins as the sun rose over the burning horizon. The wolves shifted around them, forming a circle, a silent vow that whatever came next, they would not run again. The fire finally began to die. The smoke faded into morning light. But beneath the earth, far below the scorched stones, something ancient stirred again. Its heartbeat matched hers. Its whisper was a promise. The reckoning has only begun. The first light of dawn painted the horizon in pale gold, but there was no warmth in it. Ash drifted through the air like dying snow, settling over the ruins of the temple and the broken bodies that lay scattered across the stone. Smoke still curled upward, carrying the faint scent of burnt blood and lightning. Aria walked slowly, her bare feet brushing against the cold earth. Every step left behind a faint shimmer of silver light, fading almost instantly, as though the world refused to remember what had just been unleashed. Beside her, Calem's hand brushed hers. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. There was a silence between them that said everything. The ache of survival, the exhaustion that sank deep into the soul. Their bodies bore the marks of the battle, but it was their hearts that carried the weight. The wolves who had followed them stood at a distance, uncertain whether to bow or breathe. They watched her as though seeing something not entirely mortal anymore. The silver flame in her eyes had dimmed, but its memory lingered, a ghostly afterglow that made the air hum faintly wherever she turned. Calem's voice finally broke the silence. "The others will come." Aria nodded, her eyes fixed on the horizon. "They already are." The earth beneath them gave a faint tremor, small at first, like a heartbeat beneath the soil. Then another, and another. She froze. From deep within the ruins, a sound rose. Not a scream, not even a voice. It was a whisper, soft but sharp, threading through the still morning air. The kind of sound that doesn't belong to any one throat. Calem turned toward the sound, claws half bared, every instinct screaming to fight again. Aria stepped forward. The whisper grew louder, shaping into words carried on the wind. "She is not the only one marked." The air turned cold. For a heartbeat, the world felt like it exhaled all at once. The flames dimmed, the clouds rolled inward, and a chill swept through the clearing. Aria's mark pulsed faintly beneath her collarbone. Not in pain. Recognition. A warning. From the far edge of the ruins, where the mountain's shadow met the rising sun, a figure stood. Cloaked. Motionless. The wind tugged at the edges of their robe, revealing a faint glimmer beneath the hood. A sigil, glowing crimson. Not silver. Not her mark. Something older. Calem tensed. "Who is that?" Aria didn't answer. Her pulse quickened, a deep unease crawling up her spine. Every instinct told her to run, but the pull of that mark held her in place. The figure raised their head just enough for light to catch their eyes. Red, ancient, familiar, and in that single moment, Aria's breath caught in her chest. It wasn't possible. The figure spoke, the voice distant yet piercing clear. "The flame has awakened, and now the blood will answer." The ground split open behind them. A low rumble shook the earth, sending cracks racing through the battlefield. Wolves stumbled, growling, backing away as a crimson light bled upward from beneath the stones. Calem grabbed her arm, pulling her back. "Aria, we have to move! Now!" But she stood rooted, staring at the figure who seemed untouched by the chaos. "Who are you?" she demanded, her voice steady despite the trembling world. The cloaked figure smiled faintly, though no warmth reached their eyes. the one they buried when your kind began to forget. And then, before she could take a step forward, the figure vanished, swallowed by shadow, leaving only the faint burn of crimson in the air. The silence that followed was not peace. It was the silence that comes before the next storm. The earth stilled, but the scent of iron lingered, a warning written in blood and ash. Aria turned to Calum, her chest heaving. The fear she felt wasn't just for herself now. It was for every shifter who had ever carried a mark, for every soul bound by prophecy and curse. Calum's jaw tightened. That wasn't a priest, or a wolf. No, she said quietly. That was something worse. The wind picked up again, carrying the echoes of the battle across the valley. The wolves began to move, limping, silent, their eyes filled with questions none dared to ask. Calum placed a hand on her shoulder. His touch was grounding, steady. You said the reckoning had begun. Maybe this is part of it. Aria looked toward the horizon. The sun had climbed higher, but its light felt weak, like a dying flame against the weight of what was coming. The prophecy said blood would rewrite the throne, she murmured. Maybe it wasn't mine they meant. Calum's expression darkened. Then whose? She didn't answer. She couldn't. The mark on her skin flickered once, then faded completely. Only silence remained. They began walking again, toward the light that didn't warm, toward the day that felt like it shouldn't exist. Their shadows stretched long behind them, twisting, merging, as if something unseen followed. At the edge of the ruins, she stopped and looked back one last time. The temple was gone, reduced to rubble and smoke, but from deep within its heart, a faint crimson glow pulsed. Slow, rhythmic, alive. Her lips parted, breath trembling. This isn't over. Calum stepped beside her, his golden eyes narrowing at the horizon. No, he said softly. It's only just beginning. Thunder rolled across the mountains, distant but growing. The air thickened with the metallic tang of rain mixed with something darker. Blood. The first drops fell, staining the ash at their feet crimson. The wind howled through the trees, carrying the scent of death and the promise of war. Aria lifted her chin toward the storm, her silver eyes glowing faintly once more. The fire inside her had quieted, but it was far from gone. Somewhere beyond the mountains, the crimson mark burned bright against the sky, unseen but felt, an echo calling to its twin. The gods had not turned away. They were watching, waiting. And as the thunder grew louder, the wolves began to howl, not in grief, but in warning. Because destiny was moving again. And this time, it would not wait for mercy. The storm swallowed the light. The story faded into the sound of thunder, the hiss of rain, and the scent of blood carried through the wind. But even then, somewhere beneath the ashes, a heartbeat answered hers. And the fire, though buried, still burned.